for that. Now, when in our Bible study group, we went over the bondage breaker, and we did it sort of as a pilot study, men and women, and then we had people give testimonies as to what they got out of going through that book. So that's a great place to start. It has 7 Steps to Freedom in the back of the book, and it's really a great place to start. And one of the things that they said is, after I pray, I feel a lifting now, of freedom. I don't feel stuck anymore. I don't have to be afraid of Satan. And nobody who is a Christian should ever be afraid of the enemy. We have the authority. When we submit to God, we can resist Satan. Another person said, I've totally changed the way I pray. I pray with spiritual authority now. Satan told me at the beginning of this group, the bondage breaker, that it wouldn't work for me, and I believed him. Some people joke that the devil made them do something, like they have no responsibility. God taught me how to pray and overcome the fear of Satan. Another person said, I know I can make it through my Christian life now, which I wasn't sure about before, due to Satan's lies. Satan is like germs. We know they're there, and even though we can't see them, we still have to learn to wash our hands when we need to, because if we don't, a germ can take us down. But we don't need to get too focused on it all. So in terms of my clients, my friends and my family, in the scope of time, I don't have much time to go into all this, but when I moved back to Denver, I trained under Sarah Thiessen, who invented a technique called Splankna. She's actually in the Church of Christ, and it's called, you can go to her website and read more about it. It's christianmindbody.com. But these tools, this technique is like finding the x-ray, but Jesus is the healer. The x-ray shows us what needs to be healed, but Jesus is the one who takes it out through the tools of simple prayer and confession. Again, not exorcism, but simple prayers and confession, and simply learning our authority to revoke the lies, the vows, and the agreements that we've given over to the enemy. These all need to be renounced in prayer. Once they are, then I see amazing healing. Like I said, a couple books, The Bondage Breaker by Neil Anderson, Victory Over Darkness by Neil Anderson, I Give You Authority by Charles Kraft, and 3 Crucial Questions About Spiritual Warfare by Clinton Arnold. Also with Sarah Thiessen and her techniques, you can actually take these trainings. You don't have to be a therapist. So that's a good thing too. So these lies, vows, and agreements show up in the subconscious or the conscious, often in the subconscious. So the tools help you get to what they are specifically. There was a person I worked with, I'm just going to call her Christine. Well, she came into my office, and she'd been hearing voices for 12 years and had been under psychotherapeutic medications for that long, and nothing had helped. She was a disciple. She was at the end of a rope, and she told me, if this doesn't help, I don't know if I can live the rest of my life like this. And I said to her, I said, what are the voices telling you? She said, not to go to church, not to read my Bible, not to pray. And I said, is there any possibility that you think this voice could be from the enemy? She stood up, glared at me, and said, what? How could it be that simple? And stomped out of my office. So I was a little puzzled by that response. But she called me later in the week, and she said, Denise, I'm driving to church, and the voices are getting really loud. I said, can you pull over somewhere? And she said, sure. So she pulled her car over. I said, can you follow after me in a prayer? And she said, sure. So I said, and I led her in this prayer, God, if these voices are not from you, I command them to leave now in the name and authority of Jesus. I bind them to the cross. I forbid them to ever come back. In Jesus' name, amen. She prayed that prayer, and she came back the next week, and her voices were gone. And I worked with her for 1.5 years, and her voices never came back. Not only that, in the course of 1.5 years, she was an amazing client, but in a course of 1.5 years, she had come to me with PTSD, major depression, all sorts of things like that. She had was taking medications, waking up every hour throughout the night, not able to sleep in her bed, not able to have hope about her future, not desiring ever to get married, not able to have feelings, not able to cry, not able to, she had to miss a day of work a week. She woke up every hour. She had to sit in the back of the church in case someone would hurt her. She had difficulty praying and feeling close to God. And she had difficulty reading her Bible. When she left after 1.5 years, after doing really renouncing all these lies and vows and agreements and casting out the spirits that goes along with it, because in the process of renouncing lies, vows, and agreements, we cast out the spirits that are associated with those vows, lies, and agreements in prayer, similar to what I just had her pray. And after a year and a half, she could bring her needs and feelings and preferences into her relationships. She felt closer to people. She was closer to her coworkers. She wasn't missing work anymore. She wasn't waking up in the middle of the night. She was sleeping through the night. She wasn't hearing voices. She could sleep in her own bed, which she couldn't before. She was off all medications. She was no longer missing work. She was having increased energy, better concentration. She was more active. She was able to feel all her feelings. She was able to see herself getting married and having children, which she couldn't before. She was less guarded and more relaxed. She didn't have to sit in the back of the church. She was motivated to get close to God and work on issues. She was praying. She was reading her Bible. There were some physical issues that cleared up, and she was happy. She felt like, I can live life now. Well, anyway, that's one. And there are others, but just in summary, what is a vow? A vow is something like, I'll never trust a man again. For a woman I worked with that was sexually abused. She had no man approach her. She was in a school that was largely male, and a very pretty girl. No one ever approached her. After she revoked this vow, she had an old friend of hers she'd knew in grade school come up and ask her to be his girlfriend, and he wasn't even planning on it that night. And he said, something about you's changed. I don't know what it is. And she was always being approached by guys after that. Another vow, I won't ever succeed at that. I'll fail at everything. He renounced that, and he started succeeding. I knew a woman who vowed she would eat whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted, because her father was so controlling that he had forbidden her to do that. She came to me 100 pounds overweight. She renounced the vow, plus several others that she had made, and over 1.5 years of Christian mind body, she lost that 100 pounds, kept it off, and unlike previous attempts, she had no compulsion to eat anymore. Another vow is, I'll never let anybody see the real me. She renounced that and lost 100 pounds as well, and she was able to get close again to her family and friends. A client, when he was a little boy, his dad beat him up for not cleaning up his room well enough when he was 6. And there's the trauma. And it's always in moments of trauma that the enemy speaks to us. And he believed the lie that I have to work really hard to be accepted by others. And he made the vow, I'm going to work really hard in life so people won't reject me. And he didn't even remember making this vow. He came in because he'd been through 3 marriages and he was a workaholic working 90 hours a week. Well, after the tools revealed that this was the root of why he was working 90 hours a week, he renounced that in a simple prayer, and he came back the next session and said, I don't even have a compulsion to work past 30 hours a week. He said, I really believe now I can have a marriage that will work. Another man lifted a phobia of 40 years in one session, a phobia of heights. And he was able to go up on a height, an elevator, and show us, and wave down from the railings at us. And he was never able to go within 30 feet of a guardrail. So, those are some examples. Lies can be, nobody will ever love me. Agreements are a little harder to discuss, so I won't for time. But as we've all known, we've all felt stuck at different areas in our lives. In my own life, one of my favorite stories is my husband, who was healed of 4 decades of insomnia that plagued him and gave him symptoms of ADHD, which he didn't have. He would wake up in the middle of the night a lot, have a difficulty falling asleep more than an hour, and this was happening every night almost for 4 decades. He cleared it after doing the steps in the bondage breaker, doing the Christian mind body, and getting to some lies and vows agreements that he needed to break. And he cast the spirits out that were attached to this agreement. He's slept so well since that sometimes I'm jealous of him, and I'm a pretty good sleeper. And so those are some of the testimonies. So again, some of the things that we can all use and focus in on with our friends and ourselves is confession, meditation, affirmations. I give people homework, scriptures that are stretching, positive, to replace the lies that they believe for 30, 40 years. They say that 10 times a day out loud. They write it 10 times a day. And then I also encourage them to do prayers that invite God to show us the vows and lies and agreements that we've made. And He will. He'll expose those. And there isn't like one prayer. There's not a formula. just to really renounce it is the most important thing. Also, you can ask people, what are the lies that you're believing that's causing the distress in your life? Have you made a vow? Have you confessed and renounced these beliefs, these lies and these vows? Have you affirmed the truth to replace those lies and vows? So, those are some of the things I use. And thank you for the time.